Hello and welcome to Cucina Pazzo. Today we're going to be making some English muffins, but not like those other low-carb English muffins that you've seen on the internet that have almond and coconut flour. So there's none of that in there. These are actually going to taste just like regular English muffins. These are great. So I went out online and I bought these rings, and they come in like 16 of them for like $10. And this is what you're going to need in order to make your English muffins. So I'm going to pan this down real quick so you can see my setup here. This is an electric grill. So these are going to sit on this electric grill. I have already oiled these, so there's a little oil sitting there. Oiled them with some avocado oil. So as we make these, they're going to proof on this griddle. The griddle won't be on until we're ready to cook. So the ingredients are very similar. We're going to make these a little bit different than making regular bread. So again, this is not like making regular bread. This is going to be a softer dough. We're not trying to work the gluten structure in this to make a sturdier bread. You want to get those nooks and crannies in there, so this will be a softer dough. And I'll try to explain some ingredients as I'm going. All right. So we've got the food processor here, so not the mixer. You could do it in the mixer, but just make sure you don't overwork it. So we have 1 1/4 cups of vital wheat gluten. So this is not flour. This is the gluten gives you think of the glue that binds everything together. So the stretch and everything that you would normally get in bread, that's what this is going to give. So you need a little bit of that in there. We just don't want to toughen it up. And if you overwork it, if you overmix it, you're going to have a tough product in the end, and it won't taste quite right. But if you're making rolls or you're making bread, that is exactly what you're looking for, but we're making English muffins. So these are going to be softer, more delicate. And the next one we have is lupin flour. So the lupin beans are high in protein and high in fiber. They are legumes similar to a peanut, but different because they have the high protein and the high fiber. So we have 2/3 of a cup going in. We have 1/2 cup of oat fiber. So this is not ground oats. This is the fiber from the husk of the oats. It'll give it that earthiness, that roasty bite. So that's going to go in there. We have 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum. So xanthan gum is a thickener. So what this is going to do is help hold everything together. We have eggs that are going in there too. Eggs will also hold it together. So this is so we don't have to add so many eggs. So got that. We have 1 teaspoon of sea salt. So I use a lot of sea salt in my cooking. Pink salt I use. Pink salt's fine. Table salt's fine, whatever you want to use. I just think this is better. I think it dissolves better and it's better for you, so I use sea salt. So sea salt's going to go in there. So those are all of our dry ingredients. That's everything that's dry. We're going to give these a pulse. Okay, good enough. Okay, in this container, I have 1 cup of hot tap water, 1 teaspoon of honey. Okay, honey, and a packet of yeast, which is 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. Okay, so yeast will eat 100% of the honey. So yeast will only eat 80% of table sugar. So being as honey is all natural, it will eat everything. And I know I used to make beer, so it will attenuate everything when you put yeast in there, but you have to give it time. So after we make this, we're going to let it set for 2 hours, and it'll proof, it'll do its thing, and then it'll cook, and then the honey should not be there at all. I don't even think you're going to get a sweet flavor out of it. If you did, then you didn't let it sit long enough. So you can see that the yeast is active in here. This is just an instant dry yeast little packet that I used. Any yeast you use, compressed yeast, any other kind of yeast is fine. Active, dry is fine. So I have, this is my own milk that I made, but you can use almond milk. You could use cashew milk. This is macadamia / cashew milk that I made. So that's going to go in there. But any kind of nut milk, you can use regular milk, coconut milk, all of it's fine. So slightly beaten egg I have here. We're going to put a couple tablespoons of some avocado oil in there. And lastly, we're going to put 3 or 4 drops of monk fruit liquid in there. So this is just straight monk fruit. There's no none of that other stuff that's in there, no erythritol. So these are going to get put right into here. So grab a spoon. I like to give this a quick stir. Okay, pour that in. Okay. So the reason we're going to put the monk fruit drops in there, if you put eggs in there, it may taste like eggs. So this will make it taste, it kind of negates the flavor of the eggs while the eggs have a job to do. The eggs will help bind everything together and toughen everything up. It will also keep a softer moisture product inside. So we go 1, 2, 3, there we go. So there's 4. Okay. And then we need a tablespoon. So we do 2 tablespoons of oil. 1, 2. Set that aside. Put this on. So our goal is not to overmix this. So only like 2 or 3 minutes on this and that's it. And we're going to scrape in a second. See how it's starting to go around? So now we're going to get a spatula. We're going to give it a quick scrape. This dough will be sticky. That's normal. That's okay. This recipe is only for 6. So we have this wet mix in here. Let's grab a paper towel here. Clean off our mat. We're going to sprinkle a little bit of oat flour on there. Or, I'm sorry, excuse me, oat fiber. Faux pas. Okay. We're going to scoop this dough out on there. And then we're going to let this dough rest for about 30 minutes. So it's a good time to clean up all your stuff, put all your stuff away. So form this into, best as we can, into a ball. So, but before we do, we're going to give it, with the spatula, a couple more turns on this floured board. Make sure everything is completely mixed in there as good as it's going to be. So, got that? As clean as we're going to get it. Okay. So this is going to be sticky, so if you want to, you can sprinkle just a little bit more oat fiber on there. We're going to put this into a ball, like so. The spatula is nice because it's not sticking to your hands. And again, we're not trying to overmix the dough, okay? Get it like so. Okay, we're gonna let this sit for 30 minutes. All right, we're back and I have divided my dough into 6 pieces. So you could always roll this out and cut these. But you really want, this will really make 6 pieces. So that's why I did this. This is probably not traditional to do this. It's probably more traditional to do this. And then fold up the leftovers and then cut out more as you're going. But I do know that this recipe is for 6. So what I'm gonna show you on this, so I've got these rings here. Now normally they put like cornmeal in these, and you can't use cornmeal when you're eating low carb. So I've got this sunflower flour. So it has a little bit of an oil content to it. So it's kind of a moist product, but it's also a little bit gritty. But you could use coconut flour, almond flour. You could even use oat fiber for this, but I'm just gonna take a little bit, sprinkle it into each one of these cups, like so. Sunflower oil is good for you. And speaking of oil, you could use olive oil in this recipe, sunflower oil, whatever oil you want to use, as long as it's a all natural oil. That's good for you. Well, you'd use one that's bad for you if you want, but the oil I use is either avocado oil or extra virgin olive oil. So when it comes to forming these, we're going to take a little bit of the oat fiber. We're going to sprinkle some on here, show you how I form these. So put a little bit of flour down, like so. Some on your hands. Okay. Form this into a ball. Okay. Try to pinch these little edges closed, like so. Put this in the mold, like so. And then we're going to sprinkle a little bit more of the sunflower flour on top of there. Okay? And then we're going to cover these with plastic, and we're going to let these sit for 2 hours. So I'll be back in 2 hours to show you what they look like, and we're going to start cooking them on the griddle. So notice that these are coming all the way to the top. They'll rise up above. They'll shrink back down a little bit when they after they're done cooling off. So this is about what you're looking for, but you want them to be touching the edges all the way around. So even if you use a cutter, get a cutter that is the same size as your molds. These are like 3 1/8 or 3 1/16 or something like that. They make them in different sizes. You can get them in 4s. You make them bigger. So I'm looking for the height on these so that we can cut them across. So I'll be back, 2 hours. All right, so we're back, and I can already tell that these have risen enough. It's been about 2 hours, and they've got a nice little dome on them. And we're gonna carefully take the plastic off. So it's been about 2 hours. It's been 1 hour and 54 minutes, I think. So we're gonna plug in our griddle. Okay, so these have been proofing on the griddle. We're going to turn this to about 220, 225. All right, and so we're just going to cook these until they're browned on the bottom, and we're going to flip them over and do the same thing on the other side. And I will come back and show you what the color looks like and how everything looks. So you're just trying to get them browned. They're not going to fully cook on the griddle. So after they're done on the griddle, we're going to put them on a parchment lined pan. We're going to put some foil over the top. We're going to cook them at 400 degrees for about 6-7 minutes. We want the inside temperature of these to be at least 190 to 200 degrees, and then we're going to let them cool down. Right. All right, it's been about 3 minutes. I'm going to flip these over. Should be able to grab these with your hands. They shouldn't be too hot just yet. Oops, that one came out of the ring. So I want to keep those rings on as best as you can. right? Give those another 3. That's what they should look like. And then these are going to go in the oven. Like I said, the centers aren't going to be completely set. So this one here, I might even take this ring off, and this will be the one that I use to test to make sure that it gets up to 190 to 200. All right, so they're out of the oven. I've got my instant read thermometer. It's at 197, 198, 200. So these are done. Okay, so we're gonna let these cool down until they get to room temperature. And if you did this in a pan where you browned them first, then you would have to do this in batches because your pan probably isn't big enough to have 6 of them. But if you do, it's gonna be on low. I did these on like 225, and you just want to get a little bit of browning on them, and they will collapse a little bit as they cool down. So I'll take some pictures now, and then I'll take some pictures after they're cool. And you may have to flip them over and run a knife around them to get them out, but I'll show you what they look like in a bit. So when these have cooled to touch, if they won't just pop right out with just a little pressure, just take a knife, just run it around. You don't need to try to cut through the whole diameter of it. Okay, they should pop right out like so, and set those aside so you can see that again. Just run your knife through there like so, pop them out, and let them cool to room temperature. There's one last thing I'm going to show you is how to cut your English muffin, your crumpet, the correct way. A lot of people will just grab a knife and seesaw through it, and that is totally fine. But if you take a fork and you press it in the middle, just see if I can line that up, in the middle, and just keep going around, make sure it goes all the way to the center. Just keep going all the way around. So this will help you get those nooks and crannies that you normally get from the ones at the store. This is still a little bit on the warm side. So the trick is going all the way to the center, so make sure you poke this all the way down. Okay? You have your English muffin.